Okay, it's recording. Okay. So, hello, my name is Ibsa. I'm one of the, I just passed final year recently, and this is Dr. Fahad Sadiq, who is one of the ST5s pediatric doctors, right?
Yeah, correct.
So, so we'll be talking a little bit about how to get into pediatrics and what pediatric training is a little bit is like, or focusing on more about how to get in this video. So, firstly, let's talk about a little bit about what pediatric is like as a specialty. Like, do you think it's worth doing? Is it because it's a 7-year training course? So what is it like? How do you find pediatrics as a training program at the moment?
So yes, of course. I'm sorry. First of all, my camera is just not working today. We're talking in May 2023. So yes, I'm ST5. It's become a 7-year program. I definitely agree that I'm very pro pediatrics. So you will get a very biased view from me. I've always found pediatrics to be my calling. My background is that I've worked in A&E for almost 8 years, and based on the various interactions I've had with the specialties, I basically chose pediatrics, and for good reason. So back in the day, I was very much interested in orthopedics. I also considered A&E as a career, but I left both of them and I came to pediatrics based on the fact that the way pediatric folks dealt with us, A&E and any other specialty. So it's still relevant then, and it is still relevant today. That it's a great specialty in terms of the support it has. It's just like any other specialty when it comes to workload. I think there is no specialty which in today's NHS which is saved from any kind of decreased or increased workload. I think it's a fair amount of work that we had. That we have on a daily basis.
So a lot of people are afraid of pediatrics because they think there is, compared to other specialties like dermatology, rheumatology, ophthalmology, where it's people see it as a chill specialty, or it's not as intense. But I feel like that's a little bit of a misnomer for pediatrics to be as intense as people think of it as, or it might be, or do you think it's actually the fact that the other specialties, it is intense, but it's intense in a different way? So what do you think about the intensity of like how pediatrics is, and how often do you have to normally work in a week, let's say?
So I'm currently 80% LTFT, but I've also worked a fair amount full time as well, and it's pretty much a standard 4 out of 5 day. 5-day week with basically weekends. We can work every 1 in 8 or 1 in 10, depending on the intensity of how many people we have around. I think when I moved up to the registrar level, yes, there was a bit of shortage up there. But even then, I think it's not so bad. I think every now and then I do work 1 in 8 or 1 in 6. And the worst was 1 in 6, but that was at a trust which had some issues with recruitment. But otherwise, it's always been 1 in 8 or 1 in 10 weekends, and I think that's not so bad when it compares to other specialties.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. And is it like a normal 9 to 5, or does it sort of change day and day? Like, can it be sometimes 12 to 9, etc., like some other specialties?
Yeah, so again, this depends on the trust, So we do have some trusts which have twilight specialties, and some trusts which have just a morning and a long days method. So I think both ways are valid. The current trust where I'm working now, they have a twilight shift. So they have a morning shift, a twilight shift, and a long day shift, and then they have the night shift. So it all depends really from trust to trust.
So that's trust to trust. Okay, but generally speaking, you all have a little bit of everything. And is it normally like a 48 hours? Is it that contract still maintains sort of 48 hours, like on average?
Oh yeah. I think it's lesser actually. In fact, I think it's a 40-hour contract that we've been signing for quite some time now, and everything else gets paid as overtime.
Okay. And in terms of, I think another problem I feel like sometimes it has with pediatrics is they say there's a lack of private work available. Is that true? Or actually there is some scope of privatization, but maybe people haven't thought about?
So I'm afraid that I don't know much knowledge about this, but I've heard that I want to specialize in pediatric allergy myself. Now, there's a lot of people who came to me and said, "Oh, is that because there's a lot of private work out there?" I said, "No, that's not the reason why I'm doing peds allergy. I didn't even know that there was a lot of private work out there. But I've heard that in my particular subspecialty, there is quite a bit of private work.
Okay.
However, that's not the interest I have here. I'm not sure if that would. So to answer your question, I'm not very good at knowing whether.
So it depends on the subspecialty. So certain pediatric subspecialties might have a little bit more private work process than other subspecialties. All right, that's fine.
Definitely.
Okay. And one thing I was interested in, and that's important to me at the moment, is so the way it works is a run through, correct? So you do ST1 all the way up to ST7 or ST8. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, between ST1 and ST3, there's a break that you can take after ST3. Is that correct? Like ST3 to ST4, some people take a break. Can you take that break still, or how does that work?
So you can actually take a break anytime you want. It's out of program is what it's called nowadays, and that is divided into several categories. And that break can be for compassion, it could be for career break, it could be for experience, it could be for research, and all of them have their own categories.
So can I, for example, so you mentioned that there's a different categories. For example, let's say ST1 to ST3, I do it, and then I feel like I need to make a little bit of extra money. So will I be able to take a year out to just locum for that year? Is that possible, or is that frowned upon?
Yes, that is basically possible at any stage in your career. I think what happens is that you have to give a bit of a notice 6 months in advance, because they have to rotate you to different rotations. And if you talk to your TPT saying that this is what you'd like to do, then yes, that's very, very much possible.
Okay, so you can, because I know, for example, for me, like if you think about your life, it's during your early 30s, when you have kids and things like that, where you have the most amount of financial burden, like around that time. And sometimes you need to take that year out to just supplement that income a little bit, to just, get a little bit extra to support your family and things. Whereas later on, once you're a consultant, you're making enough money that time. But earlier stages, I know that sometimes it can be very either stressful, or you don't have the flexibility to work with your children, or there's a lot of issues. So taking that year out is quite nice to just locum and make a little bit extra money, and also spend time with your children, which honestly you won't have later on, because you become so busy as well. So that's quite nice to know. One of the other things is, if for each deanery, I don't know, did you just apply to West Midlands, or do you know a little bit about some of the other deaneries?
So I'm going to say what I know. So basically, I was an international medical graduate, and I was applying for round 2 posts. Now, when I applied, I've basically passed 3 interviews. I've appeared at 3 interviews because of different reasons. Sometimes it was the mistake was from my end, and sometimes it was a mistake from the deanery's end. They made me sit in round 1 interviews for some reason, and I'm not sure why. But I got a feel of how many positions there were in round 1 and then in round 2. So I remember when this was back in 2018, when I was applying for pediatric ST1 posts. There was at least 180 posts approximately over the whole country.
Wow, for round 2.
For round one.
Oh, round one. Okay.
And for round 2, there were approximately 40 to 40,
fine.
40
so
to
I think
50.
that means that there were a lot of people that were applying to 1 or 2 specialties and didn't do pediatrics, and then they did the other specialty, and then
it wasn't
over.
It wasn't very famous back in the day. Yeah.
Okay, fine. So do you know much about? So one of the things is, for me, I realized is I would like to live in London, but London is very expensive. So I was thinking, if I want to go to somewhere like Sheffield, one of my concerns is Sheffield is quite a big deanery. Like Sheffield deanery is in the Yorkshire and Humber and all that place.
Yeah.
So if you're doing a pediatric placement, can you do it like specifically in Sheffield, or do you get put out in like all the different places around that trust? Like, is it trust based or is it hospital based? That's basically my question.
So it depends on the deanery actually. So West Midlands Deanery has a lot of hospitals, but pediatrics is only offered in some of them.
Okay.
And even then, even out of those hospitals, there are some hospitals which cater to certain subspecialties more than the others.
Okay.
So, for example, as an ST1 to ST3 trainee, as a level 1 trainee, you're expected to have a certain number of neonatal months or neonatal experience, and you're supposed to have a certain amount of general peds experience, and then you're supposed to have a certain amount of specialty experience.
Yeah.
Things are changing at the moment, but the most latest pattern is that there's 1 year of neonates, 1 year of gen peds, and 1 year of specialty that you're supposed to do in the first 3 years.
Okay.
So all your hospital trusts or postings will be based on that pattern, and that's why you would be moved to different trusts based on how much you have achieved.
I see. So, for example, let's say you're in the West Midlands. I don't know. I was reading up on the website. They said it's good to have a year in Gosh, for example. How is that? Like, you take a career break and then you go to Gosh to work for a year? Like, how does that ever work? Can you ever go to like a different trust to work there for a while? Is that a thing? Can you do that or?
Yes, that would come under UPE. Again, that would mean that you have to pass a lot of interviews, get the relevant interviews done, and secure the job, and then basically push it to your TPD saying that you would like to do an UPE, which is out of program experience. And then you
so you can go there for a year and then come back to your normal training after you apply for that. So it's another job in itself. You apply for it. But you take that year out, so you're taking the year out of the 7 years. You go there, you do that year, and then you can come back into the normal training program again.
Yeah, I think and it's basically generally preferred that these UPs are taken as early as possible. So I think you can't do that in your final year, because in your final year you're supposed to be just in one place, and you're supposed to do your final year's assessments. And I think if I'm correct, you can't move during the middle years as well, when you're kind of transitioning from level 1 to level 2 training. So now there's only level 2 levels.
Okay.
And
so basically between ST1 and 3, you have to take it either after ST3 or you have to do it after consultancy, basically. That's what I'm saying.
So let me be clear. You can take it anytime between ST1 to ST3 for sure, and even after ST3 as well. But you just have to just make sure that your competencies are fine. You're not lagging behind. Keep your TPD informed at all times. And basically, if everything works out for them and they are not short of any staff, then I don't see any reason why they shouldn't let you work in a good hospital like Gosh. Yeah.
Okay, fine. That makes sense. And for example, if you so with West Midlands, so you obviously you work in West Midlands, so you know the most about this. How was it like for example, would you be able to was it central enough where you can buy a house here and commute to all the different hospitals, or did you have to go, like, for example, all the way to Hereford? Because I know Hereford sometimes comes under the West Midlands deaneries. Like, did you have to go far? Like, I know some people had to travel to Hereford. I know some pediatric registrars had to. Did you have to do that, or why did that happen to some people and didn't happen to others?
So I can't say why that would have happened to some people rather than the others, but it didn't happen to me. I guess I was lucky in that way.
But can it happen though? So you can sometimes end up in Hereford.
Yes, it does happen to people. And there are ways, where you can request things. But the thing is that eventually, yes, there is sometimes you're basically told to do something that you may or may not like.
Fine.
But eventually, I think I became used to it as well. So I was told to go to a trust which was quite far away, and I chose to commute, but there was some of my
Where was it, if you
friends.
don't mind me saying where that trust was? Like how far
Oh,
from?
it was just quite far away. It was Telford, and I was living in
Telford.
Birmingham.
Okay, fine. Okay.
Yeah, so I had to go all the way, and basically, it was almost an hour and a half commute.
Okay.
But then it was probably just difficult on the first few days, and then I became used to it.
Okay, fine.
So I think it's just your body getting used
So
to
I
it.
guess so. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter what, because a lot of people say the West Midlands Deanery is actually one of the smaller deaneries out of the others in terms of like pediatrics. So they say it's quite like the hospitals you can get are quite central. Like
Yeah.
'cause you can get Birmingham City Hospital, City Sand will do it. Heartlands has a specialty unit. I does Good Hope? I think Good Hope does have one as well.
Yeah, I think but they're not within the training system. So
okay, fine. So there's a different hospitals which are within training system. Some more hospitals aren't.
exactly.
That's where. Okay, fine. Okay, but so I think did you do a lot of training in Birmingham Children's Hospital then? Because that's obviously the pediatric hub here.
Yeah, I did a year there, and if I'd chosen a specialty that was offered only at Birmingham Children's, then I would have been posted at Birmingham Children's Hospital.
Oh, so you choose your specialties as well within pediatrics. So you don't. It's not. I thought it's generalized. I thought you do a little bit of everything everywhere.
No. So basically, when in the specialty year, no, I didn't choose it. I was just given whatever. I just took whatever I got.
Yeah.
There are some people who did request things and they did get it based on the availability.
I see.
Yes, you can choose or you can try to request a specialty in Birmingham Children's if you ask nicely. So I think and you can get it. I just went with whatever goes and whatever I can get through.
Fine.
So,
okay. And in terms of when you did apply for like general like housing and things, how did you have to rent and move around a bit, or did you just sit in one place in Birmingham and then just commuted from there?
The second option. So I chose to just sit in one place and commute.
Okay, fine. So so you just did a lot of commuting from there. But was that ever so apart from the Telford one, the other ones were they pretty much close by within like the Birmingham sort of area?
Yeah. That was quite okay.
So what was apart from Telford, was that the only furthest one for you, or did you get things like did you get New Cross? Well, New Cross isn't too bad. Did you get New Cross, Walsall? Did they come under the rotations?
Yeah, I did get New Cross, and it wasn't that bad. Walsall is not part of the teaching network, so I didn't get Walsall.
So is West Midlands, you know how there's West Midlands and you have North West Midlands? Is there a different deanery for North West Midlands?
No, it's the same.
Or is West Midlands in itself?
It's the same, all the way from Hereford to Stoke on the top.
So you cover all of that, a part of West Midlands?
Yep.
Wow, so it's quite a big deanery. Okay. It's big, but I think the amount of hospitals within that do pediatrics in the peripheries are less than the central hospital. I think most pediatric stuff, more specialty stuff, gets sent into some of the central hospitals. I know like some people even in Hereford had to be sent to PCH because if they're like complicated cases and things. Okay, that makes a lot more sense now. Okay, but I think that would be the same in like if you apply for somewhere like Sheffield area, you probably be sent out very far places as well sometimes, but you probably would be in the central area of where most of the hospitals are.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, let's talk a little bit about, so now let's say we're applying for pediatrics now.
Yeah.
And we're at a stage. So one of the problems with pediatrics is a lot of universities do pediatrics differently. So some universities, they start pediatrics in third year. So they will have a lot of, exposure to pediatrics earlier on. So they have an idea of it. For example, in Birmingham, we don't get exposure to pediatrics until right at the end. So we don't have much to like a number one, some people won't know if they want to do pediatrics or not at that point because they haven't had the rotation. And by the time they've done that, you're near to starting F1. Does that disadvantage you? Do you still have time during F1 and F2 to build your portfolio, do you think?
Yes. And I'm saying that because I was a trusted doctor doing A&E when I applied for pediatrics. And yes, I did have time. There are some things that did panic me towards the end, but actually looking back, I didn't really need to panic that much.
Okay.
And I think every day or every year they're getting better and better at being more clear of what they want from an F1 F2 who's planning to set the interview,
Right.
Pete's interview, the
Fine.
ST1 interview, and I
Okay.
think that's what makes things good.
So in the past, I think they used to have an ST3 option. Have they taken that away, or what's the ST? Like you used to be able to get in. There was like two scoring. There was like ST1 scoring and ST3 scoring. I never truly understood what that meant. Like who applies for ST3? Is that like international graduates, or how does that work?
No, it's basically anybody can apply for it. Let me just share my screen now, so it'll basically give you an idea of what I'm talking about. So I'm trying to share this. So this is the RCPCH website. Yep. And it basically, you go to the part that talks about education and careers. Yep. And once you choose that, I think there are, as you can see here, uh, there are there are different sections for every place. Now, if you go to the part that says apply to pediatrics ST1, 3, and 4, uh, as you can see, this is still there, and then there is this academic training as well.
Okay.
And this is pretty interesting, actually. There are people who might be working as clinical fellows in academics, and as I think they call it some sort of a, I can't remember the name of the pathway. The ACF, yeah, exactly, the ACF pathway, and they can come in too. So these are the portal of entries. Still, I think we also have ST2 as well, though it's not mentioned here, but they may have stopped that. However, these are the portals of entry. Now, each of these is a talk in itself. So I think we'll just kind of focus on ST1 today.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yep. So I highly recommend international graduates and people who are foundation doctors or people with less than 4 years of experience to apply at ST1.
Okay.
And there is a reason, because pediatrics is a pretty stressful specialty at the registrar level, and there is a lot to learn. So if you don't have more than 4 to 5 years experience, I would strongly suggest start at the ST1 level, because it molds you into how a registrar should be acting at the higher level.
Okay. So ST1 to ST3, is that where you do all those exams like the MRCPH and stuff like that? Is that level where you do it before you move on to ST3, ST4?
Yes, I will show you one of the flow charts of how the training pathway has become.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Later today, and then that will kind of make things a bit easier.
Yeah.
Now, so this is a pretty good website to go through. It tells you what to look for. Now, this is the important stuff. Yeah. So recruitment, how you get in, application form, how much you put in, and the virtual interview. Right. So let's go with the application form first. So in the application form, we're going to be discussing things like how to get into pediatrics in general. So I think this was one of your questions the other day, like what should I be doing in the next few months, that how can I get in and so on. Now, if I'm correct, there is actually so I'm going to skip all this part which talks about application ratios and stuff. But I think it's a good idea. As you can see here, it tells you clearly that there were in ST1 in 2022, 1,000 applications were made for 458 posts, and the fill rate was 97.82%. So that's pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I think it was the other way around in my time.
Yeah.
But and now I'll try to see which ones are the best things which could basically help you. So I'm downloading a couple of things here, and then I'm gonna share my screen with these. So
it's on the top.
Yeah.
No, it's on the top tabs. It's opened up in the top tabs.
Oh, has it? Oh, sheesh. Oops.
Top tabs. If you look up there.
I'm trying to actually get this toolbar away. There we go. Excellent. Okay, so there we go. Okay, so so this is basically, this document talks about the pediatrics ST1 criteria, the person specification. I think this is tab useless. So there we go. Now this is general stuff. MBBS. Obviously, you're all going to have MBBS, and you're all going to have the foundation trainee. And then this is stuff that fitness practice, skills, health, career progression. So this is all general stuff that's there in every specialty. Okay. Now, the essential criteria are basically things that you must have done in foundation, which is basically apply sound clinical knowledge, prioritize needs, recognize ABCs, and then a bit of academic skills. So here they have actually mentioned demonstrates understanding of research, demonstrates understanding again and again. And this keeps getting, repeated multiple times about research, about communication skills.
Just pause at that research part. You see where it talks about quips and stuff like that. For example, I have done quips, I've done audits, but not all of them have been specific to pediatrics. So I've done quips in surgery or some other thing because I didn't know exactly what I wanted to go into, so I just did a little bit of everything. Can I still mention that in my interview?
Yes, definitely.
Criteria here.
Of course, definitely, because these are transferable skills, right? So you can actually demonstrate, say that this is how it is, and this is what we have. I can show that I can do audits and QRPs in other places as well. So the understanding is just the essential part. But since you've done one, this actually comes into desirable criteria now.
Okay.
So doing it is desirable. Understanding it is just essential, right? So there's more value when you do there's desirable criteria.
So when I looked at this in the past, one of the things. So when you look at the surgical portfolios, the medicine one, each part had like a point system. Do they have a point system in pediatrics, or is it desirable criteria?
Yes, we will come to that. And that's basically we come to this when you come to this document. The scoring frame network. It will show you. Yeah.
Okay, fine.
So basically, I can go through both of them simultaneously. So we have basically essential criteria, as I said, and the desirable criteria.
Okay.
So one of the things, if you remember, we were talking the other day when you have clinical
pediatric life support.
Exactly.
So this the pediatric life support. We do that during medical school, but I don't know but that won't apply because do we need to have like years do we have to uphold competency? So for example, would we have to do it again in F2 before applying to especially so it's still relevant, if that makes sense?
Is it approved by research.org?
It was done in medical school. Like I think it was they did the whole like MCQ thing and stuff. So I think it probably is.
Well, if it is, that's fine. But I have a feeling it's not because I remember they asked me to do the NLS at the start of my ST1 post, and that was done through research.org, all of which gets covered under your study leave expenses. But you have to do it.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. I also had APLS at the start of my training as well, so that kind of helped me a lot. Okay, so here I would say is that if you have the money and the time, do APLS and NLS. But if you have to choose either one of them, then choose NLS because it's a bit cheaper and it's a bit more useful at your level, at the ST1 level.
Fine.
Yeah. So first part, clinical knowledge and expertise. Essential criteria we understand, but if you want to score points, NLS is to be done. Yeah.
Fine.
The second thing is these are very easy to complete. Level 2, level 3 safeguarding courses.
Is it going on the online portal?
Exactly. Okay. The ELFH. If you do a face-to-face, that's even more valuable. But I think if you demonstrate some sort of level 3 certificate, that should do the job.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's that. Next thing is academic skills. If you don't mind, I'm going to jump to this document here. And then I'm just going to see if they have written something about how much you score.
Okay. So do you mind going to the first one? Sorry. So additional qualification. Oh, sorry. No.
I'm sorry. Oh, you
that
like
one
that.
there. So is that the first point? Or is there anything else on the first page? Okay. So that's
the first point. Yeah. If you got an MSc, PhD, or an MD, like you're an academic clinical fellow, and you've actually managed to secure one of this stuff, then you get 2 points right there.
Okay.
So
things like we did an integrated BScs and stuff, so those won't count then.
I think
it has to be a postgraduate qualification.
Yeah, I think it does because it's a postgraduate certificate, so you still get 1 point.
Okay.
As you can see,
No, I
these
don't
are all
think
the
it will count
master
because it's not
degrees.
postgraduate, because we did it because I didn't do an MSc. So some people do integrated MSc, but I did integrated BSc. So I guess it wouldn't count towards this because, well, if no, put it down. So you'd have to do an MSc to get these points. But I think, well, it depends if you have, is there ways of getting funding for MSCs for pediatrics, or like, how would you get funding for these things?
I mean, I think there is some funding available for some specific courses. So, for example, when I was trying to apply for the MSc allergy program, there is a national bursary called the Natasha Allergy Bursary, and then there was a couple of other local bursaries at the trust that I was looking at. So there's always something at the place at the university where you're looking for, and it was a pretty nice bursary. It was almost like 50% of the tuition fee. So that was a pretty good meaty scholarship.
Fine.
The other thing is that considering your integrated BSc, I would still say, why don't you actually send an email to the powers that be, like the training services team, and just ask them if it would be counted as an integrated. So you can submit it at the time of your ORIEL application.
Yeah.
So I would say
Fine.
Okay. So sorry, we didn't go through the scoring. So the scoring is right here. So they've mentioned additional qualifications to skills, blah blah blah. So there's
it
like
doesn't
8 domains.
add that much, like doing the whole MSc and stuff. Like,
yeah,
it's only out of 2 points. It's
2 out of 30 points, as you can see.
Yeah.
So this gives you a very good idea of where you should be focusing your stuff.
Efforts on. Yeah.
So basically, as you can see, there's 8 domains there, and they ask 4 out of 30. Now, let's see where the scores are. So, for example, the MSc, it's not a very great thing there. Now, when it comes to transferable clinical skills, now I think this is more about how well you've done at a foundation level. But I'm assuming you could at least get 2 or 3 if you've basically done some sort of foundation level training in pediatrics. And that
what
comes
does it
in the
mean?
form
Like,
of,
I don't get this bit. How do you
so basically
evidence for this?
Yes. So basically, when you start your foundation training, you're going to get things like mini kexes or DOPS or CBDs, and the more pediatric CBDs and mini kexes and DOPS you have, the more it shows that you are a person who's clinically well, who's well versed with pediatrics, and the more the complexity of the cases.
So doesn't this doesn't this favor those people who've got pediatric rotation? So I do have a pediatric rotation, so I'll say that. But doesn't that favor those who have pediatric rotation?
It does. It does. However, there is always a chance to do pediatrics. Let's say in general practice. Let's say in A&E. Let's say in places like obstetrics and gynae, where you may handle a baby. So there are always these opportunities where you can always ask for a mini kex or a drops. So I don't think it's completely unfair. But yes, I must say that obviously you're likely to get more stuff from pediatric posts. So yeah,
that makes sense. Okay.
And then here it talks about experiences and reflections. So reflect on your clinical experience, how it has prepared you for a career in pediatrics. So this is more of a statement, really, and probably some sort of a mistake or a learning event that made you think about why you want to do pediatrics. So that's more of a this is more of an example of an experience.
Sorry, the previous one was 6 points or 4 points? So already 8 points. Literally, if someone doesn't have a pediatric rotation, they're already at a significant disadvantage. Because yes, you can try. You're right. Yes, you can try to reflect it different ways, but this is unfair because it's like if someone doesn't have, for example, let's say someone. Foundation training is not specific. Like some people can never get pediatrics or something like ONG or whatever. What do they do then?
So I think, if you see this question here, it says reflect on your clinical experience and how it has prepared you for your career in pediatrics. So I would say there are some errors that are across specialties. So for example, let's say there is an unsafe ward, or let's say there is a medication error, or let's say there has been a a colleague who has, uh, broken confidentiality of a patient,
Yeah.
or let's say a colleague has not turned up for work.
Mm.
So these are all, reflections of clinical experience that can definitely be proven to be shown in pediatrics as well. Because,
Okay.
of course,
Right.
pediatricians do suffer from the same issues themselves. And
And
what are
can
the
you put
implications?
the clinical experience from medical school, for example? Are you allowed to take from there, or does it have to be during your foundation training?
I think it's valued when it's during foundation training.
I see. Okay.
But I don't see why not. If it was in a clinical context and if it happened in a hospital,
Mm.
then yes, of course, because it's
Yeah.
all about clinical experience. It's not life experiences.
Okay.
So yes, definitely. So that there we are. So that's like 8 points right there. In fact, we've got 10 points already now. So this was about your question about QIPs. So as you can see, QIPs are actually only 3 points.
Mm.
So you know, uh, basically, when you participate, you actually get only 1 point.
Mm.
But actually, when you present it at a regional meeting,
Mm.
that's when you actually, or a local or regional meeting, that's when you actually get 3 points. So it's not just doing the QIP, it's actually presenting it as well.
Okay.
And then basically, this is a bit debatable, good quality audits. I'm not sure what that means, but yeah,
Okay.
in other words, I think if you do an audit and present it, you should be able to secure these 3 points. So these are 3 easy points right there.
Fine. Yeah. So interesting. I've done an audit. Well, it's been a while back, but I did an audit in molar pregnancies, and I presented it to the hospital. Does that count as a local thing?
You present it to the hospital, you say?
Like the hospital board meeting, like with other obstetricians and stuff like that. Like that being local.
Debatable. It really depends on who saw it. So for example, if someone saw your portfolio from the pediatrics team and then they said, okay, yeah, this looks like pretty regional to me, so they would actually confirm it as regional. But if they said no, this is more local, so it's quite subjective, of what they would say.
No, but it doesn't matter here because it's whether it's a local or regional, you get 3
Exactly.
points.
Yeah. That's
But what I'm trying to say is, because the pediatrics is a bit nicer because like there's other specialties, you get different points depending if it's local, regional,
Yeah.
national.
Exactly.
They've been a lot nicer here to say,
Yeah.
well, we don't really care whether it's local or regional, as long as you've done it.
Exactly.
That's brilliant. But I think one of the things is with the local, and what I mean by local is for example, if you presented it at a hospital, for example, let's say at hospitals there's grand rounds, for example,
Yeah.
and let's say
Yeah.
you had an audit and you presented a grand round, does that count as local?
Yes, I think it does because what we define local is actually local meetings. For example, local governance meetings.
Okay.
So that's actually within a department, and if you're actually presenting it at a grand round, that's pretty interspeciality. So that's an even wider coverage. So yes, it's definitely
fine.
better than a local meeting actually. Just a point to note here while I was reading this. So you get 2 points for presenting it. But then you get 3 points if you participate regularly. So if you see that point over there, it says evidence of having presented at a local audit and participated in regular useful audits throughout training.
So throughout training, is this from F1
foundation
or does it
training.
kind of medical school does? Because I did a few audits and quips while through.
Yes.
I did a few.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Will that? Okay. Fine.
Yeah. Definitely. If you basically count them as participation and the others as presented meetings, then yes, definitely.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then comes to number 5, which is leadership and management. So this is a bit difficult because this is somewhere where people at your level do find difficulty. Obviously, you guys are training to become, doctors, and these are roles that you may or may not have been given in the past.
So this interestingly, and I don't know if this counts or not. Okay.
Yeah.
So I work with number one as Beamer, student Beamer. I'm currently leading the national research project for the student research project for which is based on like looking at prayer, fasting, and like teaching. It's basically like a national teaching project. Me leading that, would that be one? Or I've got another one where I work with a charity which is called Maternal Aid Association, and I'm part of one of the subcommittees, but I'm leading in that. Would that count as like a national level leader role, or does it have to be a healthcare sort of related?
So it's no, it doesn't. So it can be non-medical as well. That's the thing, which is what it's trying to tell you. How involvement and learning in leadership and management has led you to develop as a healthcare professional. Okay. Now, obviously, your projects, if they were based with NHS, then they would be even better, because then you're doing a managerial role at an NHS level. However, I've basically heard about this in the past, where people have talked about personal experiences, and they've said that they have managed certain teams which were non-medical, and they managed at a professional level, and then they presented and showed that they are good at leadership and management. So any kind of organization you do, whether it be shifts or rota or something leading to something getting better somewhere. So yes, that would all be useful. Anything on a cultural and a society level.
Yeah.
And yes, of course, that would be that would be counted. Yeah. The next thing is academics. So this is the other area where a lot of people score quite poorly. And the reason being is that there isn't just enough projects of academic achievements.
Yeah.
Or the thing is that there are ways to basically improve your understanding of research.
Okay.
So.
So do these research projects have to be after? Can this be during medical school? Because I did actually get some publications during medical school. Do they count, or do they have to be again during F1, F2? Because I know some specialties they say you can't. The publication doesn't count if it's during medical school. It has to be after thing. Is the pediatrics the same, or as long as you've got a published, it's fine?
See, the thing is, if you look at point number 4, it says publication as first or last author or international presentation, right? Now, I would say it's a bit difficult for me to comment on this, whether as a medical student, are you considered a medical professional? And then, would that count or not? But I would say it's always good to mention it in your CV, and then also send it across to the training services team, again, who are very good at replying very quickly, and they can give you an idea of whether this is likely to be accepted or not.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. For those people who don't have any research projects, I would say that at least do the thing called GCP, if you've heard about it.
Yeah, I've already done GCP. I've done
yeah,
the NHR. Yeah. So anytime, and I think we have to do research anywhere, they always require this. So
exactly.
Data collection things,
Yeah, so this is just for the viewers to understand that if they've done this online module called Good Clinical Practice from the website called NIHR.
Yeah.
So this is a really good course, and it can give you good points towards.
Where does it give it points? Which section?
The research part.
Which
one? So basically,
involvement in research projects, is that bit?
Yeah. So basically, it might give you 1 point because it's without a presentation.
Yeah.
So if you can say that you have prepared yourself as a person who's got GCP, then it basically gives you that 1 point. So something is better than nothing at all. Teaching, again, these are points this is actually attainable if a person has actually delivered some sort of training and teaching rota, and also deliver teaching themselves. So, for example, you've joined the department, they are looking for someone to design the teaching for ST1s, let's say. I would say that that's a good opportunity to jump upon that, because it covers 2 areas, number 7 and number 5, which is leadership and management. So if you jump onto a teaching rota kind of thing, you've basically covered 2 things at the same time.
Yeah.
And then basically, if you are a person who's regularly, so you might get 3 points because you have designed and led teaching. So you're basically designed a teaching rota, and then you've done the teaching yourself as well.
Yeah.
So that gives you easily 3 points. And then if you've got evaluation, that's even better. Meaning,
so
like
the
Google
evaluation
Forms.
part, is it like, I mean, that's easy. You just put a survey at the end and that's it.
Yeah.
Or do you have to then do
Actually,
an evaluation and then do another research project or learning from that evaluation?
So no, evaluation means someone who has evaluated you as a teaching rota person. So that would be a
Okay.
consultant who says, "Oh, you've done a great job,"
I
or I think you've done a good job, but you could do this, 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 and this.
Okay, I see.
And it's still good reflection. And if you've basically been given evidence that you have actually done a good job, then that's where you get 4 points, basically.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
I know an interesting. I mean, say, I don't know if this will count. For example, let's say final. For example, in Birmingham, we do pediatrics at final year. Let's say I teach the final years a pediatric module. I say, okay, I'm gonna do a revision pediatric session. Yeah. And I get few people on the Zoom call, and I record it. And let's say I then upload it onto YouTube, and like I record it, but they put the submission link, and then I send that video to a consultant, and they evaluate it. Will that count as a way of getting around? Like, because sometimes I know consultants can get busy and not have time, but would that be something relevant, or is that something doable, or do you have to do it in person kind of thing?
I think we're changing scenarios, we're changing ways that we're doing things. I don't see any reason why any consultant would refuse to evaluate that. It all depends on what was your level of engagement at the time.
Yeah.
And I think yes, why not? If people were basically with cameras switched off and not even giving any kind of facial expressions, or somebody was just on their phones while the Zoom meeting was going on, that's a pretty horrible evaluation, isn't it? But if someone was actually engaged with you at all times, then I think that's pretty good evaluation.
Okay, fine, thank you.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And we come to the final part, which says about statement, and this is where you speak and use, and it's basically the greatest amount of points as well.
Okay.
So number 8 is all about you collaborating with everything else, achieving as much as you can, and then putting it into your statement.
So this is where people mention the conferences, there's extra like curricular, the stuff.
Yep.
I see.
Yep. And I'm gonna close this tab now, because we're going back to the same thing again. So now we're coming back to the tab which we left about clinical skills and then academic skills. So we are basically, we've talked about research, we've talked about teaching, and then you're reflecting. So it's pretty much repeating itself. And the management leadership, it's mentioned how much you get and so on. So there's a lot of stuff which is just reading material. I think that can be read by people later. And then basically, extracurricular activities achievements relevant to the specialty. So this could be things like, if you've organized some sort of a regional teaching day, or let's say a regional, I don't know, there are people who have organized walkathons, marathons for pediatrics. And these are actually considered, bonding activities and stuff that's done for patients and physicians alike. So that's where you get extra points for those as well.
So what do you mean? So like what do you mean by walkathons, and what's that? So
basically, there are some people who kind of combine pediatrics as well as their natural interests. So here in West Midlands, we actually had someone who sent out a bit of something called. They sent out a flyer saying that can everybody join us for tea and walking at some place. I can't remember which one. It was a hilly area. And then basically, this was just a Saturday, like a random Saturday, for people to bond together. I think there was something. Then there was something about charities which happen at Birmingham Children's all the time.
So essentially, if we do a charity event or something towards pediatrics and things, like a fun run, we would get points for that as well. And we can talk about it in the interview. Fair enough. Okay.
Yep. So like the Bima. The Bima event that we all went to, so that was pretty good. that will count towards this.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. So that's it. Now, as you've seen, so far, you may have noticed this. It's quite kind of a bit strange, isn't it? But
yeah,
we haven't talked about the exams at all.
yeah.
You see that there is no exams
So
in this
there is
at all.
no points for examination at
Exams
all.
at all. Did you see that?
Yeah, yeah.
Isn't that strange, isn't it? But this,
Yeah, because every other specialty they have, you need MSRA, you need this, you need that.
Yeah.
Wow, pediatrics. Wow, like this is why you need to get to pediatrics.
So basically, the thing is, I'll end with saying this, that, okay, so we are not talking about interviews today. We're just talking about how to do this. And interviews is another video probably on its own, so I'm not going to talk about interviews. But you would say that if I was to go for an interview, and this is where the human factor comes in. So in shortlisting, it's all about people, seeing how many points have scored, and they shortlist you, and then they bring you to the interview. As a pediatric, and then at the interview, there are going to be some sections where you got to explain your portfolio and what you've achieved so far and so on.
Okay.
And I say that if you have the time and the money, then why not do the FOP exam? Okay,
fine.
Yeah, it's simple.
Yeah,
it's relatively inexpensive.
Yeah,
it's the first step. It's something that's aimed at foundation doctors.
I see.
And it's the FOP, the foundation of practice, which should be achievable.
Okay.
And why not? Because TAS is extremely difficult, theory and sciences, whereas FOP is kind of okay. It's not horribly difficult.
Okay.
So why not pass that exam and then come to this interview armed with this extra arsenal of this guy is basically interested in pediatrics. Otherwise, he wouldn't have done the FOP exam. So in summary,
all right.
What are the big things we looked at? Well, before I go do that, do you have any questions at this point?
Yeah. So quick question. I'm going to share my screen. So I'm on Oriole right now. Where exactly on Oriole do you find the whole, like, where is it on Oriole? Or is it like a different Oriole? Or like, do they send us a different link when we do this?
Yes, I think so, because at the moment, you don't have offers out yet. I mean, you don't have the vacancies yet. I think there's a section that says vacancies, if I'm correct.
Yeah, it says vacancies there.
Yeah. So you don't have any, because pediatrics hasn't been offered at the moment. So basically it will
come up here then.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if you were to share your screen again, I can show you what it is actually.
Okay.
So
yeah.
Okay, that thing which says include closed vacancies. Just press yes, and just like pediatrics.
Okay, so
I'm applying for pediatrics. So where is this foundation? Just remove that. Just write pediatrics.
It's not working. Peters. No.
I think
unless this is only for foundation programs, I can see right now, because unless I have to sign in again on Oriole, or is there?
So I think you're searching at the wrong tab. I think when it says advanced search, underneath that you write pediatrics.
Advanced
search. See that tab that says advanced? No, not there. Move to your left.
Left, yeah.
Yeah, you see that advanced search, and then it says I am applying for.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Pediatrics there.
No. Not that. I don't know if this is I can only do for foundation training here, like, because I'm not. Maybe it's because I don't.
Do you want to try? I think that's true, actually. That's a bit unusual.
Maybe it's because of that, because it's not saying anything about it. So maybe I have to finish foundation training and the Oriole maybe updates, or it's a different. Maybe.
Okay,
fine. But generally speaking, it'll be on vacancies, and then you would apply to different specialties. Okay.
Yeah.
And you don't only just apply for pediatrics, as in like, you can apply for multiple different specialties, right? So you can apply for pediatrics and something else. I think a few people do that, and you can just you choose the offers of whichever you want to apply to that.
Of course.
Okay, fine. Fine. So that's all about the recruitment. So, but we saw today, like there was nothing on examination, but if you do exams, it shows well in the interviews, but it's not going to be part of your shortlisting.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, right, and hear me out. If between the shortlist, so how does the exam work? So can you take it at any time, or is it a specific time you have to take this FOP? Like, how does it work?
So FOP, TAS, and AKP, all of the exams, in fact, all the 4 exams are offered almost 3 to 4 times a year.
Okay. So can you take it after your shortlisting? That makes sense.
Can you take it after the shortlisting? Yes, you can. And you can basically tell them at the time of shortlisting that you're intending to apply for it.
Okay, fine.
So it will be part of your statement.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
That's okay. And the FOP, just to clarify, once you've done it, I don't have to do it again. Like, it's not like there's certain exams you do it, but it only lasts for like 3 or 4 years. So FOP, once I've done, it's done, and then I can just move on to the next set of tech exams or whatever that might be, part of the pediatric examinations.
I'm a bit unsure. Actually, this is the second time someone has asked me this question. I'm actually I'm not sure because I gave the exams in quick succession, so there was no gap in my case. So I'm so sorry. I really don't know the answer to that question.
Okay, fine. Let me just let's just do a quick Google search on that. So is this is the FOP, this part, theory examination for MRCPH, this one, yeah? Theory exam, how to apply after exams. You can have 6 attempts. Yeah, it doesn't really say about like how long it lasts or anything. Okay, fine. So you is it like a normal MCQ exam, and then you take it from there? Okay, fine.
Yeah.
All right. So okay, that's quite useful to know. Those are very manageable. It's very, very manageable. Like, it's nothing too like the teacher, for example, like if I compare this to surgery or medicine, like you see some of the things like teaching, they would say you'd have to show teaching project for at least 6 months. But here they just said do a teaching project. It's not given a time frame. Obviously, the more you do, probably the better, but it's not given a time frame. You still get the points as long as you've done it, even in a month. Like, or even like it's a lot more flexible, I feel like, the pediatrics shortlisting compared to the other ones. And you don't have to have done the masters. Like, if you didn't do a master, like, it's too expensive anyways. It's 2 points you're going to lose. It's not the end of the world. Fine. Well, thank you very much. That was very useful. Taking a lot of your time. But that was a very thorough way of like knowing what to do for pediatrics, and hopefully people will find this useful like for years to come, and like they'll to know where to look. And we'll put in the description box the feedback form, so that helps you out. So you can send that to me, and then I'll put in the description, and people can always put a feedback form for that.
I think I would just. Before we stop the recording, I think I'd just like to summarize what we've discussed. So, so in general, we've basically seen that, pediatrics is just like any other specialty. Yes, it's got a 7-year program, which is probably a bit longer than some specialties. But believe me, you run out of time. So it has a lot to learn, but it's very interesting. It's a very well-supported specialty. It's quite a bit of fun. There are people who have basically who've got some very easily adjusted rotas as well, right from the start of their training. I know some trainees who started at LTFT or less than full time from the first year itself. And then, I know we talked about taking year out and so on and so forth. But actually, there are some women who actually want to take time out and want to for pregnancy and life events and so on. And it really, it's pediatrics has been at the forefront of LTFT jobs. So the work-life balance is really well maintained in pediatrics. I would highly recommend women, especially, to join this training. Not that I don't want guys to not to join, but it's really really.
No, I think you're right, because it's been a shift, because in the past it wasn't like this. I think a lot in the past, the pediatrician, the higher ups realized that we aren't getting a lot of people applying to pediatrics because of how intense it was. It used to be hell, like apparently, like doing pediatrics. And now, as you said, like rightly said, like a lot of the pediatricians are saying it's way nicer than it used to be. Like we're getting all of this time to take easy time to time off. Some people take the year out, they go on holiday and they actually enjoy themselves. They're not burning out as much. So it's really, really like it's such an improved specialty. And like a lot of people don't want to do it because it's children and they find them annoying or whatever. But I think it's great. Like I think you do need to have a knack for wanting to do it as well. But it is worth it, I think, in my opinion. So,
And then secondly, you know, so this is the work-life balance part of things. Secondly, as you can see, the application process is pretty simple. It's ORL and then preparation for ORL. So what to do? We've summarized. We have these 8 domains. Where basically, you know, if you were to do a good neonatal life support course, a good safeguarding course, and a good QIP with some teaching and rota management, you're pretty much set. So it's actually 3 or 4 points. And you know, obviously you'll be doing your mini Kexes and DOPS and your CBDs as you go along. That's part of what you do. That's your clinical stuff. But if there was anything extra to do, it would be just these 4: NLS, safeguarding course, level 3 safeguarding to be correct, teaching and management, and then basically, you know, so you don't even have to do an exam really. You know,
that's really good.
If you do the exam, like the FOP exam, it's like the cherry on the top, and that's it. You know, these are a few things that you know that will get you through.
And that's really good. And another thing this is something other pediatricians who I know have moved as well. So a lot of other specialties, it's actually very difficult to move from one deanery to another. But with pediatrics, depending on obviously the availability and stuff, a lot of people found it very easy to move from one deanery to another because maybe their significant other has a job different places, or children are in different places. They can be a lot more accommodating than other specialties. Because I know someone like anesthetics, for example, they have very difficulty moving from one deanery to another because there's very few positions and it's very competitive. Whereas with pediatrics, they have a little bit more leniency, I feel like, when you're moving from one specialty to another, because people do drop out and, you know, take that year out. And so they can then, you know, when there's a lesson that, you know, one pediatrician is going a year out, the other pediatrician can then move on to do in that sort of trust. There is a bit of more flexibility, I found. I don't know if other pediatricians have said the same thing, but I know a few pediatricians who have moved around. But most likely, if you're moving around, it's like the North and the Midlands, you can do it. London, it's a bit more tricky, but generally, it's doable.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
So I think we'll stop the recording there. Jazakallah khair for all the help and all the information. I think it's been nearly an hour, but I think a lot of people will find it very useful, like especially going through it and like going through it in detail, each little bit. Like there was nothing that we didn't go through. Like we've done everything in as detail as we can.
Right.